400 million years in the making, rock on top of rock. It seems right that something this exceptional would take so long. The Canadian Rockies are impressive, not only in their appearance, but for the wilderness they preserve. In 1883, the railroad began making its way through Western Canada, and with it came civilization. Still, more than 100 years later, much of this wide-open country remains much the same. About 100 kilometers west of Calgary lies the Bow Valley, surrounded and protected by proud mountain peaks. On the side of what is now known as Sulphur Mountain, 3 railway workers discovered natural hot springs when one of them fell through a hole and into the warm water. From these springs sprung a town named Banff after one of the railroad's executives. Today, Banff is one of the best-known ski resorts in the world. Hundreds of thousands of sports enthusiasts come each year to test their skills on some of the finest ski mountains in the Canadian Rockies. Cross-country skiing is one way to move through the wooded forests in the Banff Lake Louise areas. Meet John Servold, a former Canadian Nordic combined Olympian, who calls these backwoods home.
It's pretty much my lifestyle since I was a little kid, so it's something I enjoy. It's part of me, and the scenery is amazing, and the snow is good, and hopefully it'll help me live a longer, healthy, happier life. Compared to downhill skiing, you have no ankle support and much lighter skis.
John is an accomplished all-around skier, but says cross-country offers him the most.
I think just the freedom. It's a very good feeling. You can go where you like and with who you like, and choose a trail of your difficulty, and you can go off trail too.
Which John did recently when he really went cross-country, skiing from Lake Louise to Banff.
There is a marathon race from Lake Louise to Banff, which is 65 kilometers. It took me 4 hours and 20 minutes, average 15 kilometers an hour, which is slow by Olympic standards, but it's a little bit of a rough trail and a little sketchy in places, but it's sort of a classic ski.
This part of Banff National Park is almost 6,000 feet in elevation.
It's a very natural setting still because it's the oldest national park in Canada, so it's very undisturbed.
John Servold has been doing this most of his life and hopes he is lucky enough to do it for the rest of it. Meet Peter Swain, a mountaineer who spends a lot of his time in the backwoods of Banff on snowshoes. Peter says with snowshoes, you can get off the beaten path and deep into the wilderness.
It's a great way to see the backwoods. What I really love about snowshoeing is that there's no trail. You don't think in terms of on a hiking trail, you're always stuck to the trail. Snowshoeing, you can do it in a very low impact way, so with very little damage, or if any at all, to the woods around you, and you can just wander off wherever you want.
Peter is a naturalist who sees things that escape the untrained eye. A beaver once made this area his home. Its lodge remains along the creek.
Beavers will build these dams up so they can flood areas, and that way they can access more food like willow trees and aspen trees and not really worry about predators like the wolves, the coyotes, the cougars, that kind of thing. Beavers can gnaw enormous sizes of trees. I've seen them 3-4 feet diameter that they've chewed down. It would probably have taken a beaver about 10 or 15 minutes to chew through this.
The Shawnee Indians call the elk wapiti, which means white rump. Female elk spend most of the winter on the valley floor with their offspring and immature males. Most mature males venture off on their own or are in small herds at higher elevation. There have always been elk here in the Bow Valley, but by the early 1900s their numbers were so low they had almost disappeared. Introduced animals brought the numbers back up, but now there's another problem. The elk have figured out that wolves do not like people and won't come near them. Elk seem willing to ignore the people, and residents often find the animals in their backyards. The elk population explosion in the mid-1950s is directly linked to the extermination of wolves as part of an anti-rabies program. It took 3 decades before wolves returned to this part of the Rockies, and now a very important predator-prey relationship has been reestablished. Peter shows us the remains of an elk killed by a pack of wolves.
This was the Cascade wolf pack that came down from their winter haunts. They quite often hunt out here. There are about 17 of them. They ran into a small herd of elk, mainly bucks, the males. They managed to separate one from the herd. It's about a 4 to 5 year old elk, probably in the 500, 600 pound range. Tired by the winter, cold, sick maybe.
The track showed the chase covered about 200 yards and lasted just a few seconds. A wolf pack numbering 17 animals is quite large, probably killing at least 1 elk per week. The colder the winter, the more elk they will need for survival.
It took them about a day and a half to finish off the carcass, and then they moved on back up to the Cascade Valley, so they're quite a distance from us now. You never know what you're going to come across. All kinds of tracks of all the wildlife out here. Come across a pond and you might see some ducks or other waterfowl, elk, deer, all sorts of animals are in the backwoods here. So yeah, you do have a good chance when you're off the trails of finding them.
A special wilderness is the one man shares but does not destroy. Such a wilderness is the backwoods of Banff. Getting into the backwoods of Banff does not take long. About a mile above the Banff town site is a place known as Spray Lake. Jeff Peridot is taking us fishing on this mountain lake, where native Indians once fished with bows and arrows and spears. In the winter, it is a frozen lake, and fishing through the ice can be very good. Jeff and his partner Jim Bob waste no time in breaking out the ice auger.
Starting to get close. Okay, get almost there. There we go. Water for hot chocolate.
The ice is 2.5 to 3 feet thick. The baited hook is dropped some 80 feet near the bottom. We jig the line a few times and boom, in less than 5 minutes we have our first catch.
Lunchtime. Just the right size for the pan.
If it looks cold out on the ice, it's because it is, but if dressed correctly, 15 degrees can be very pleasant.
Ironically, some of the coldest days will actually be very mild because the sun's out. And if you're sunny and wind-free, then you're quite toasty. It's always that wind factor that's really going to impose itself on your comfort.
Something Canadian outdoorsmen don't seem to mind at all.
Ice fishing's just our way of extending our fishing seasons, as a lot of us are passionate about our fishing. As ice fishing goes, it's certainly a good way to get supper.
There's nothing quite like a trout sandwich out on the ice. The scenery alone is worth the trip out here. It's a bonus when you're lucky enough to hook up to a big fish. It's exciting, and everyone wants a hand in it.
Well, I think he's over 10.
I'm gonna grab him. I got the longest arms.
Well, he's right close now.
Okay, now,
Should I try and hand him?
He's dead tired though, eh?
Well, he's pretty dead tired. He's just sitting there.
So I just want to get the nose in there, and I'm gonna.
Okay, let him go, let him go, let him go.
Craig Thomas has come all the way from Missouri.
Okay, is it getting close? Is it getting close?
Yeah, here he comes.
All right.
Yeah!
Blair! He's freezing to death.
Never would have expected it. I was told 2 to 5 pound fish. See what I got today, that's pretty incredible.
Since we've all had enough to eat, Craig decides to let the big fish go.
They're pretty
ready?
Resilient. Yeah, in the cold there.
There he goes, tail flapping. All right, another one released.
Where there is a frozen lake, there is often a frozen waterfall. But few are more inviting to an experienced ice climber than this one at Lake Louise. Top to bottom, the fall measures about 400 feet of almost vertical ice. It is a challenge accepted by Todd Burrell and fellow climber Rick Harlan. Each step, every swing of the pick must be thought out, for this is a sport with no room for error.
I take it very seriously because of the nature of the sport, but that also it's invigorating and very exciting, and that's what keeps me going on it.
A trained climber will spend enough time researching the face, fully understand its difficulty, constantly be aware of any temperature changes, and most importantly, pick a partner he can count on.
Oh, it's completely crucial. You pick the wrong guy, and he could get up on top and anchor into some broken ice, and his anchor could fail, and he could fall off and pull you with him.
This frozen waterfall at Lake Louise is considered one of the best climbs in North America.
It was known among the locals here as having one of the steepest, most strenuous sections of ice, and people were scared to get on it and try to lead it because they had to hang on their arms for about 30 or 40 feet.
You definitely don't want to fall, but you put ice screws in to catch your fall, and yes, you could get hurt, but hopefully, you you don't get killed.
I think it's something that's become a bit of an addiction, really, and it's kind of hard to think of life without it. It's a certain type of satisfaction and rush you get out of it that's unlike anything else.
A satisfaction that Todd Burrell and Rick Harlan can take with them, because together they have climbed one of the world's most beautiful frozen waterfalls. Yes, it is a day to remember. And with the night will come the first of many tales to be told. Mount Rundle, an impressive mountain forming the western wall of the Bow Valley in Banff, Canada.
Mike! Mike! Good dogs.
At the base of Rundle, along the Bow River, some of the most picturesque dog sledding trails you'll find anywhere.
On by.
Primarily a recreation now, dog sledding first came to North America during the Gold Rush days. Siberian Huskies were brought in to pull sleds, packing supplies into rough wilderness.
It's a natural form of transportation. It was here way before the automobile or the train or anything like that, and it puts man in nature with his animal and in a working environment, and it's the way it should be.
Jason Smith has always been a dog lover, and so it was a natural when he started breeding and training Siberian Huskies.
Our dogs, the Siberian Huskies, were bred by the Chukchi Indians in Siberia, and that was 1,000, 2,000 years ago. They used them for work to haul their supplies.
They mostly bred the blue-eyed dog. They like the blue eyes, so they only bred the blue eyes. So it's a very dominant feature in the dog, but it's a recessive gene. So you'll notice that in our dogs, most of the dogs have one blue eye or a brown or all blue. And they're definitely bred for pulling.
On by.
Mountain Mushers breeds all of its own dogs. All are Siberian Huskies, which are smaller than the larger Malamutes, but they are able to work longer, making them ideal sled dogs.
As young dogs, they show a bit of promise. They're ambitious. They have the desire and the drive to be out in front. You just slowly move them up to the front. And unfortunately, not everybody is a lead dog, but it's not necessary for all dogs to be leaders.
The lead dog must be smart and motivated, be able to set a pace, and pick it up when asked to.
On by.
The lead dog must also be able to take verbal commands.
Skeeter, ha! Skeeter, ha! Ha! Good dogs. Good girl. Let's go, dogs. Okay. Whoa, Skeeter. Whoa!
Jason considers his dogs part of the family, even refers to them as partners in the operation. He says keeping sledding fun for them is what makes the operation a success.
You understand your dogs, you know how they're feeling and how they're going to react, and you know how they're going to work. And if you work well with your dogs, they're going to work well for you.
Experiencing the backwoods of Banff by dog sled is like, well, turning back the clock.
Oh, tuxedo!
Seemingly untouched, is this part of the Canadian Rockies. It is a beautiful frontier and a shining example of how a wilderness can be preserved. Time has stood still here in the backwoods of Banff.